here we go. All right, so 5 classes left. We are working in Module 3 today, which is, and we're looking at the ones that most of y'all do not know. Now, this first one says find the area. Find area. Now, I'm going to come up before we even get started, and I am going to come over here, and I'm going to get your formula sheet so that we can have a copy of our formula sheet. All right, here's our formula sheet, and we're looking at area, so these would be my area formulas. Now, on this, I need to know what my shapes are. What shapes do you see?
Triangle.
A triangle and a rectangle. And we always do the outside shape and the inside shape. And we have to say, am I adding those two shapes or am I subtracting those two shapes? What are we doing? What did I do with those two shapes?
Subtracting.
If you're sucking in, you're subtracting. If you're poking out, you're adding. So for this problem, we have a rectangle, and we are taking away a triangle. So this is a subtraction problem. If it was an adding problem, we would have a rectangle and we would add on a triangle. So if you're gluing them together, that's an adding on. If you're taking them away, that's a subtraction. So if your problem is sucking in, like if you're taking something away and it's collapsing or sucking in, that's a subtraction. So this one is going to be a subtraction. So what is my outside shape? My outside shape is going to be a rectangle.
Length times width.
And we're going to do length times width. And my inside shape is a triangle.
1/2.
1/2 base times height. And she got those all off of my formula sheet. And we are subtracting because we're taking that piece away. So for the rectangle, what is my length and width?
For the rectangle, you got a base.
Okay, got a base of 6.
There's my length and my width. 10 times 6 is 60.
6, yeah, all day.
Now, for my triangle, just for those of you who need to see it, if I take this and I turn it a little bit cattywampus, and some of y'all can visualize this better than others, but if I turn it a little bit, my base is going to be 6, and my height is going to be 8. There we go. I go to my calculator and I do 1/2 times 6 times 8. 1/2 times 6 times 8. That gives me 24. So I take my full rectangle, which is 60, minus my triangle, which is 24. So 60 minus 20, that thing up, 60 minus 24 is going to give me 36 as my answer. And anytime you're doing area, it is going to be 36 meters squared. We good? Okay. Same kind of problem. Are we adding the two shapes or are we subtracting the two shapes? We subtracting because it's sucking in, because I'm taking it away. What is my outside shape?
It is 8 by 5.
What shape is it?
8 by...
What shape? Triangle, triangle, triangle. What is my inside shape?
A rectangle.
A rectangle. So we have a triangle, which is the outside, and we have a rectangle, which is the inside. So the triangle's 1/2 base times height, the rectangle's length times width. Now, let's start with the rectangle, because that's the easiest. What is the length and the width of my rectangle?
4 and 2.
which is 8.
8
Now, the base of my triangle,
is 8.
okay? What is the height of my triangle?
7.
Nin.
Seven.
Nin.
Hey, playing.
The height of my triangle goes from here to here.
That's right, it's 7.
So, this piece is 3,
Mm-hmm.
this piece
Oh,
is
9.
2,
4.
Nin.
and this piece is
That's
4.
Right.
Wake up to.
You're tripping. Oh,
So you've got the 3 at the top, the 2 at the bottom, and the 4 in the middle. So those all add up to 9. So when I do my triangle, it is going to be 1/2 times 8 times 9. 1/2 times 8 times 9 is 36, minus the 8.
It's 28.
36 minus 8. So 28, and because it's area, we're gonna do
Yard.
yards squared. Cool?
Cool.
Now, we're gonna take this same concept for a minute. Same concept. And we're gonna go to here. I'm staying with area.
Oh, yeah.
This is still area,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Gotcha.
trying to get everything.
That book.
Now, what shapes do you see?
Triangle.
Triangle.
Where in the hell do you
Not
see a
triangle.
triangle?
Rectangle. I did say rectangle. Rex. T-Rex.
I have a rectangle,
Yes.
and what else do I have?
Circle.
If I take that piece and I take this piece and I put them together, do we see that we have a full circle? Am I adding or am I subtracting those two pieces?
You add?
You added it.
I am adding those pieces, and the reason I am adding is because it looks like in this problem, I'm poking out my belly and my booty,
You're one.
okay? So, there's my rectangle. I am adding a piece on that end, it's like I'm gluing it, and I'm adding a piece on this end. I didn't cut it out, I stuck it on. So this is gonna be a rectangle plus a full circle, because if you take the two pieces on either end and put those together, that makes a circle. Are we good? So it's a rectangle plus a full circle. Now, because we're doing area, this is length times width. And if I go to my formula sheet for just a second, the area for a circle is pi r squared. Right there, circle's area is pi r squared. So this one's gonna be pi r squared. So let's start with the rectangle. Here's my rectangle. What is the length and width of the rectangle?
8.
5.
6.
We good? 88 by 70 is gonna be my rectangle. So if I come over here, I'm gonna do 88 times 70. That's like the basketball floor. That gives me 6160. Now I've got to do the end zones, like up underneath the basketball zone or whatever you call it. So if I take this piece, which is here, and I take this piece, which is here, it makes a full circle. Now, this, that 70 is called the what of the circle? When you go from one side of the circle to the other side of the circle, what is that called? That is the diameter. We need the radius.
You gotta split, you gotta divide by 2.
So if you take the diameter and cut it in half, that would be your radius.
Okay.
So your radius is going to be 35. okay? So if I come over here, I'm gonna do 3.14 times 35 to the second. So 3846.5, 3846.5. So that represents the two end zones. So I'm gonna take the basketball court plus the two end zones to get my area answer. So it's 6160 plus 3846.5. There's my final answer. 10006.5, and it's gonna be meters squared because I'm finding area. Yay? We're gonna do a couple of these. Now, is this an adding or is this a subtracting? This is a subtraction because I'm sucking in my belly. You gotta pay attention to whether it's an adding or subtracting when you're doing area. Now, what shape did I start with?
A rectangle.
A rectangle. And what am I subtracting?
A circle.
A whole circle?
Yeah.
I'm subtracting half a circle. So for this one, it is going to be a rectangle minus half a circle. So rectangle is length times width. A circle is pi r squared, but we only need half a circle. So we're gonna take that pi r squared, which is a full circle, and we're gonna cut it in half. Because we're only taking away half of a circle.
35.
So, what is the length and width of my rectangle?
That's it with 12,
5,
20.
20, which is 240. So that's the whole court. Now, if I come all the way around, do you see that full circle?
Yeah.
What is the diameter of that circle?
12. With these.
That is correct. The diameter is going to be 12 because this court is a rectangle.
Right.
So this piece and this piece are the same. So the diameter of the circle is 12. But we need the radius.
So it'll be 6.
So the radius is going to be 6.
Sure enough.
So right here, your radius is going to be 6. So it's going to be 3.14 times 6 squared, and that represents a full circle. So we're going to cut it in half to give us a half circle. So I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to do, we did the 12 by 20. Then I'm going to do 3.14 times 6 to the second, which is a full circle. But I'm going to cut it in half to give me a half circle. So 56.52 represents my half circle. And we're subtracting it because it's sucking in. If we added it, y'all, it would look like that. This would be if we added it. We're subtracting it. So it's going to be 240 minus 56.52. There's my answer. So it's 183.48 inches squared. How's that feeling?
I'm gonna have to look at it.
I gotcha. What is that one? That's gonna be a sucking in.
Sub.
So what did we start with?
Triangle.
I'm about to beat you in the head.
That's a rectangle, right? He been talking all day, now he getting stuff right.
Plus or minus?
Minus, right?
Minus because we're sucking in. And what are we sucking in?
2 circles.
Double.
Is it a half circle or a whole circle?
Well, when we put it together, it should be a whole.
Think of an Easter egg. When I put that piece and this piece together, it makes a whole circle. It's like two little Easter eggs. So I am subtracting a full circle. Those two halves make a whole. So I'm gonna do length times width, and I'm gonna do pi r squared. What is my length times width? 12 times 24. And then what is the radius of the circle?
6.
Of the circle, 6.
Very good.
6 of it.
Because 12 represents the diameter.
That's right.
So 6 is gonna be your radius. Do I need to cut that in half?
You don't have.
No, because we need the whole circle. We don't need half the circle. And we are subtracting because we are sucking in. So it's gonna be 12 times 24 and 3.14 times 6 to the second. And we are going to subtract those two answers. So it was 228 minus 113.04. Let me show you one quick more, and that'll be the last of the types I can show you. Let's say this was 10 and this was 20. And it'll say find the area.
And,
Okay? Is this a subtraction or an adding?
What's that?
This is an adding because we're poking out. And what did I start with? A rectangle, or as Terry calls it, a triangle. And what am I adding? A full circle or a half circle? We're adding a half circle. So this is gonna be length times width, this is gonna be pi r squared, and what do we need to do with that pi r squared? What do I need to do with that pi r squared? Divide it by 2, because I only need half the circle. What is my length and width? 10 times 20. 3.14, what is my radius? 5. Because my diameter is 10, my radius is going to be 5. And I need to cut it in half. So, for my rectangle, it's going to be 10 times 20. For my circle, it's going to be 3.14 times 5 to the second, and I need to cut that in half. So it's going to be the rectangle plus half the circle. So this is going to be 200, this is going to be 39.25, and when I put them together, and whatever units I had on the answer. Feeling better about those? Maybe. You've got to just pay attention to, is it a adding, which is a poking out, or is it a subtraction, which is a sucking in? And am I adding whole circle, or am I adding half a circle? Now, look at these. Similar kind of problems. It's just like the triangles we did a minute ago. It's the outside shape and the inside shape. What is your outside shape? A square or a rectangle, yeah, either one, whatever you want to call it. That's your outside shape. What is your inside shape? Circle. Now, if I go to my formula sheet, we have the outside shape, which is a square, and the formula for a square is length times width, or side times side. And on the inside, we have a circle, which is pi r squared. Am I adding or am I subtracting?
Who's adding?
Wait a minute, you're subtracting.
If you were adding, it would be a square plus a circle. You would like be gluing them together.
You're subtracting.
This one is subtracting because you're starting, you got a hole in the middle. You're starting with a square
Taking them edges.
and you're starting with a square and you're taking out the circle. So you're sucking out something, you're taking away something. So this one's gonna be a subtraction. All right, what is the length and width of my square?
18.
18 times 18. Yay? Because a square means both sides are the same. 18 by 18. Now, for my circle, 3.14 times what squared? I need to know my radius.
9.
Good. So 18 would be my diameter. So that means that 9 is going to be my radius. Your radius is always half of your diameter. So I'm going to do 18 times 18, and I'm going to do 3.14 times 9 to the second, and I am going to subtract those two. There's my answer. You've got to understand the language. They seem super hard unless you understand what you're doing. 69.66 centimeters squared. Because you're doing area, your units are squared.
That's another thing I gotta remember, the units, because they're.
On your formula sheet, I kind of put them in order for you as well. When you're doing perimeter, your units are plane. So perimeter is going to be inches, feet, yards. Then they're squared. Then they're cubed. So plane units, second units, third units.
Okay.
So plane, second, third. Areas to the second, volumes to the third. And perimeter is plane. Trying to help you out every way I can. All right. Look at that one, y'all.
T-Rex.
That's a half circle. Now, and kind of a rectangle. Now, for me, the easiest way for me to do this one is do like we just did the last problem. So the way I do this one is I do it like a square minus a full circle. Just like we did the last problem. I take a whole square and I take a whole full circle, and then when I get my answer, I cut it in half because I only need half of that.
We got 14.
I take, Mr. Fleming's in here critiquing my teaching because he knows I'm better than he is. We take a whole square, we take a whole circle. Y'all did that with a piece of cake. And then we just cut this in half because we don't need that bottom half. Instead of having to take half the circle and half of this and half of that, we get this answer and then we just cut the answer in half because we don't need that bottom part.
Also, you just do the first part and just divide it by 2 at the end.
And then dividing it by 2 at the end. So let's do this first part. So if that's 14 on the side, then this is, so if this is 14, that makes this 14, which is a 14 by 14. So if this is 14, when I do my pi r squared, what is my radius going to be? My radius is going to be 7. And when I subtract those two, I'm going to get 14 times 14, 3.14 times 7 to the second, 196 minus 153.86. And then what am I going to do to that answer? Divide it by 2. That way we don't have to have all that mess from the get-go. So it's 196 minus 196 minus 153.86 is 42.14, and 42.14 is that. So when I divide it by 2, that's going to give me that half that I'm looking for,
Which is 21.
which is 21.07. Good?
Wait a minute. Be my circle move. Thank you very much.
Alright. This next one. What do you see?
The triangle,
A triangle, and what is that triangle inside of?
a circle, a half a circle.
A half a circle. So we have half a circle, and we have a triangle. Are we adding or are we subtracting?
Sub.
If we were adding, it would be a triangle and a half a circle. That would be added.
That's like ice cream.
Be an ice cream cone if we were adding. We are subtracting. Now, to get your half a circle, we're going to take pi r squared and do what?
Divided by 2.
Divide it by 2.
Show enough.
And our triangle is 1/2 base times height. Y'all with me?
Show enough.
Alright, let me draw,
Because
because we have to start out with a full circle, right? And then we're going to cut it in half. So, 3.14. Do you see your radius in that circle? What is my radius in that circle? Radius. Not diameter, but radius.
Oh.
10.
No.
Right? Wait.
What is it, Randy? If this is a wheel, your radius is like the spoke of a wheel. 5 is your radius.
Okay, gotcha.
Your radius goes halfway through the wheel.
Oh,
Because
okay.
you see what I'm like there already.
Okay? So do you agree this would be 5?
Show enough.
And this would be 5?
Show enough.
And if I drew something down here, it would be 5?
Show enough.
And this would be 5, and this would be 5? Y'all with me? Those are all my radiuses, or radii. So, this is my radius of 5, because it goes halfway through the circle. That's what a radius is. A radius goes halfway through the circle. That is your radius. Diameter goes all the way through the circle.
Yeah.
Why you don't divide 15 by like, what is it? 15 by 5. Oh.
You with me?
I'm trying to make it.
I thought it was 15.
Now, once we do that pi r squared, we're then gonna cut it in half because we only want half the circle. So, I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna do 3.14 times 5 to the second, and then I'm gonna cut it in half. So 39.25 represents half a circle. So right now, this is where we are. We have half a circle.
Right.
Okay? We now are headed towards my triangle.
Try.
Triangle right there.
Well, try.
Now, do we know the height of my triangle? What is the height of my triangle?
15.
The height of my triangle
It's 5.
is 5.
5.
What is the base of my triangle?
5.
No,
Oh,
2
base.
point, 2 point,
10.
5. The base.
Randy, what's my base?
5, 10.
That was Colonel.
That was Colonel. Okay, remember when we were in our bicycle wheel? No. Remember just a minute ago, we were in our bicycle wheel. Hold on, I gotta get my cookie rookie down here. There we go. We were in our bicycle wheel, and I told you this was like a spoke, it was 5. What did I tell you this was? And what did I tell you this was?
5.
So what is that gonna be?
15.
10.
10. Colonel. Yeah, they're playing. They're playing.
So, the base, what is this of the circle? What does that represent in the circle?
The,
diameter.
the diameter.
The diameter. So if the radius of the circle is 5, what is the diameter of the circle? 10.
That's the 15 that throws off.
Wait a
What's
minute, no, you
15?
said 15.
That little big mark, that little
You
tic
followed
tac
up
mark.
him back there, cause he said something about 15.
was-
I put up 16 to 15.
Here, let me draw that straight line, there ain't no one there.
Thank you.
You were thinking it was a one and quarter that five.
Got a buzz.
No.
Okay, so if this is 5 and this is 5, that makes this whole thing